Hi, welcome to another episode, and what we've got here is the motherboard to a Spectrum Plus 2, the grey version. Not the Plus 2A or the Plus 2B, but just the Plus 2. And what I did in the last episode was change all the caps, all these sort. And now what I need to do though is to swap out the power regulator, I believe it's called. As I've said before, I'm new, I'm still trying to learn. Now, with this actually comes to help of my friend RetroTech Ralph, because he's already recapped a couple of these Plus 2s and got them working and everything, and he's ended up with an extra power regulator, so he highly recommends that I swap that out. So I'm going to do that step now. Okay, so we've got to unscrew this, so let's sort that out. Make sure you've got a decent enough screwdriver. Don't put your fingers right behind and stuff, as in don't grab it like that, because you might miss. As much as it might feel better to get some firm twist, you might miss and stab yourself in the hand. I'm sure you know that, but some silly little tips might actually help somebody. Alright, let's put that over there. We'll probably be able to scrape that down and clean it off with some Isopro to get all that off, because we do need to remove all that because that's old. Let's have a look at this one. Let's zoom on in because it does look a bit weird. And by weird I mean the brown gunk that's around the neck of it. Don't know if that's glue, it's melted a little bit, old age, or is it this that's caused me problems? Is it overheated? Anyway, we need to slide these sleeves back because we need them for later, and we'll need to desolder the wires from here and then solder them on to here. So let's get on with doing that. Right, so I've got this soldering iron already going, and just gently heat and pull away. Should be enough. There we go. And just remembering that brown is to the left while the power regulator is actually facing upwards. Don't know what all this brown stuff is, I do wonder. It's on the end of my soldering iron now. Come on, last bit. Try again. There we go. So brown to the left. Get rid of that one. Let's bring this one to shot. Now we're going to put a little bit of flux just to help things along a little bit. We're going to pre-tin these as well. That means putting a little bit of solder on. Don't need lots, we just need that the solder actually goes on the leg. Don't hang around for too long, you don't want to get it too hot. That should be enough. And bring the legs back. These already be pre-tinned because it's the old stuff, so let's see if they'll stick on. We'll just warm it up just a little bit before we do it though, so that it's ready to go on. So metals will start at the bottom. Hold it in place until it actually stops being molten solder and actually wants to stay still. and obviously try to make it that you're not getting cross wires. Don't want any funny nodules of solder either, because we need to get those sleeves back up. So slid around a little bit. And there we go, that should be good enough. Let's zoom out a little bit. It's quite warm. It's supposed to be able to take a bit of heat. Slide these sleeves back up. There we go. Hopefully that's a good enough job of that now. And then, as I say, we need to clean this off, so I'm going to do that off camera because it's the really boring bit. Okay, let's have a look at the thermal glue instructions. It basically says you've got to make sure it's clean front and back, as it were, as the heatsink and top of the chips. You should put a thin layer of adhesive and let it sit for about 10 seconds on each side of like the heatsink and the chip, and then stick them together. But it should be no more than 0.5mm thick in the end. So okay, that's what we'll do here then. So let's line up on where this is going to go, so it's just underneath the screw hole, obviously, but I want to make sure. I'm not going to make you wait the whole 10 seconds, but I'll get a little bit there. We don't need loads because it will splurge out as it's doing it, and it does say total thickness should be no more than 0.5mm, which is really thin. Put it up around the screw bit as well, because the whole thing is needs to pass heat across. That should be enough. And then I'll wait 10 seconds and then screw it together, and you'll see the final result. Okay, so off camera I've plugged this back in, the power regulator. I've swapped in from my Electron the power button because it makes life easier being able to turn it on and off. I should have done that in the first place. Plugged in the RGB, of course, and as you can see I've plugged in the keyboard, but without the upper case because I haven't got the space for it over here, and it's just easier to pick it up like this when I'm trying to test the memory, because obviously if it's resting on its keys it's probably going to press some buttons that Diagnostic is looking for. Now I have got the memory from Retrotech Ralph that he gave me. Let's run the test and see if it does anything, because I might be able to piggyback this for now just to see if it works. So let's go to a smaller screen, turn it on and see what the Diagnostic says. Well, at least we've got a picture of sorts. All that scrambling probably is down to the memory being messed up. And it says RAM fail number 23, which is that one there, I believe. So let's have a look if we can piggyback that by killing the power. I'll test with a couple of these and see if we can get past the problem. Making sure the pins are lined up to where they're supposed to be. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I think I'll probably just test one. If it doesn't work, I think I'll just desolder and stick in one of my new ones instead of trying to do this piggyback thing. So let's turn it on again. Still number 23 in error. And actually that's getting very warm very quickly, so I'm going to kill that power. Hopefully it's not down to my rubbish soldering for the caps. But anyway, let's desolder number 23 and stick a new one in. Okay, so number 23 is here, the second chip in from the right. So when we flip it over, it'll be the second chip from the left. So let's get some flux on and get the desoldering station turned on in the meantime, because it's going to take a while to warm up. It's the first time on today, because I've actually done this over 2 days. Well, soldering in the caps and everything like that, and then moving on to this. Did it quite late yesterday afternoon, the other one. I realise you're going to hear the hum and everything, but I'll just do the first leg and then we'll get on with doing the rest of them. Off screen, I suppose. So as always, 350 degrees Celsius. There we go. Gotta be careful now because I'm not used to doing it this way on. Let it warm up. I'll not bore you, but I'll go through doing all of them now. Finally! That took a bit of doing. Did it off camera because, whoa, I had to add some new solder for pretty much every point before I could suck it all away again. So I'm going to do that from the get-go anyway, and then I had to get a pair of pliers so that I could actually grab hold of the thing, and as you can see, it's not the old one's not in good nick anymore. Come on, focus. Is it going to focus? There you go, you can see that the legs are all over the place. But they did come away freely. It's like it was kind of stuck down, maybe because from the flux that they had put there in the first place. But I'll clean that area off and on the back with Isopro, and then yeah, we'll get on with soldering a new memory chip in. Right, since that's all cleaned off now, I'm going to put in a chip socket, making sure the notches match up with the screen, which is at the bottom for all of these chips. And then I'm going to put a bit of tape on to hold it in place, flip the board over, and let's start soldering. Socket in place, bit of tape, doesn't need to be on too strong, it just needs to hold it in place. Flip it over, and then let's get on with soldering. So I'm going to do, well, the way it is for me here, top left. A bit of heat on. So yeah, it'd take too long for doing a real memory chip. I'd end up burning it through, I think. There we go. And I'll do the bottom right. Get some more solder on there. I'm just going to hold it from behind and press up just to make sure, you know, it's actually all the way in. There we go, it is. And then I'll just solder the rest on. Okay, so I've fitted the memory chip. Already got, you know, as I've got the stand, you can see it's a bit higher up. First things first, don't do what I just did and plugged it all in and went, it's not working. I forgot the regulator. As much as I keep saying it in the video, don't forget the regulator. So there's the regulator. Let's plug in the cable, plug in the power source, plug in this. I've pressed the switch so many times now, I don't know if it's going to work first time around, but let's go to the smaller screen. Let's see. There we go. Turn on power. Oh, there's still something bad, but hopefully it will tell me something else is wrong with it now? Number 23. Okay, I've done a fair bit off camera, I have to be honest, because I was having a few problems even with the ZX Diag. Definitely read the manual to this thing, because it will give you some numbers when it gives you an error, and then that refers to, well, basically which bank it is. So you have to be very careful. So it's definitely an RTFM. Don't suddenly just think, oh, it says, I don't know, 56. It doesn't. It says 5 and 6. It's from 0 to 7. So let's have a quick look of what it actually looks like with the error that's left. As you've noticed, I've already swapped 2 memory chips, but I need to do a third one, I think. I think it's just a third one. So let's make it small, and then let's turn it on. And we get this. Now, I was getting 3 numbers at the very start of it, hence why I'm swapping stuff around, because I misunderstood it. That's why I changed that one. Doesn't matter, it's got a new chip in it. So now I've got RAM fail 3. Before I had... Okay, I'm going to be very honest with you. I messed up. So I've done things off screen. I've got the diag in there now, which is obviously what I was using, but basically it came up with 23, and I thought, oh, 23, I see 23. No, this is definitely an RTFM moment, really is an RTF moment. It's not 23, it was showing 2 and 3, but the fonts are right close next to each other, which is understandable because obviously the graphics are messed up and the Spectrum's only got so much space to put stuff. So it really is an RTFM. I'll put in the description which page of on the web page and everything where that information is, so you can jump there a little bit quicker than I did. As I said, I'm being honest. Was sort of like, oh no. I've put this back on, of course, as well, because that can give you a like, oh, it's not working, if you forget to put that on, which I didn't do, but that does give you one of those moments. But let's shrink down and have a look at the current error that I have. I have this, RAM fail 3. Now, according to the manual, I believe, if I have a quick look at the manual again, 2 and 3 is actually 3 is chip number IC29. So chip 2, well, sorry, bad bit 2 was IC30 and bad bit 3 is IC29. So I'm going to change that one. So it seems like I've changed the chip for absolutely no reason, but learn from my mistakes. RTFM, don't think you know everything. Not that I did, but I thought when it said 2 and 3 like that, it was actually pointing it. It'd be great if it could give that kind of error, but I think the problem is that I don't know if it can check to see if it's in a 128K machine before it starts doing it. I'm not knocking the people that written this ROM, it's way beyond my knowledge of doing things, but for absolute newbies it'd be kind of nice if that's what it said, if it could figure out that it's which kind of spectrum it's going up to, because it can only work up until a +2 grey anyway. If you could somehow figure out what chip's in there, but I don't know if they can do that while it's in this state. Anyway, let's get on with doing IC29. So I've got my desoldering station ready, I've got my soldering station ready. What I have learned though is a couple of things that I want to teach you before I actually do it. So let's kill the power to this and make it full screen again. Right, so what I want to teach you is the power's been turned off, pull out all the connections. Come on, there we go. What I want to teach you is basically the desoldering side of things. I highly recommend, even before you start desoldering, you add fresh solder. They're not coming up easy if you just use the solder that's there, at least not for me. So you can either try it or just go ahead and do it. Obviously, when I know everything's working, I'm going to clean the back of the board again, so I'm not going to worry about the flux just yet. But right now, I've got to add solder to the 4th chip along, as it were, wasn't it? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. And basically by adding more solder, I literally mean add more solder. I've already put flux down because I did it when I did the other one, because it already told me. But put flux on and add more solder, because you might be able to tell from there anyway, is that there isn't actually an awful lot of solder on here, and the sucker does need not a lot but a fair bit. One thing I want to point out as well though is don't rest your soldering iron so you're touching the next lot of chips along. Try to hold it so that you're not touching more than the pin that you're actually playing around with, because otherwise you'll add heat to maybe a working memory chip and you'll end up ruining it, and you'll end up having to swap that one out as well. But hopefully this is the last chip that needs to be swapped out, and it might have been that I only need to do 2 anyway. That's my stupidity. Should have RTFM. Should always RTFM, quite frankly. Lesson learnt as always. Right, so I'm going to swap everything around now so that I can actually get the desoldering iron going. You may have also noticed that I brought this in because I was testing for continuity. There's an awful lot of trace lines to test, so I got a bit lost in doing that anyway. I just wanted to make sure that the first socket that I did was done correctly, because I should have RTFM. Anyway, this is warming up to 350. Okay, so it's at 350 now. Straight up and down. And just keep sucking away. I'll not bore you while I do all this, but back in a moment. Okay, so I've desoldered it all. Time to see if I can actually get the chip out. If not, I might have to put new solder on yet again. Put a bit of flux down the sides so that any solder that's actually up on top is want to flow down as well through the holes. Let's try to remove this chip carefully but firmly, as always with many things. Okay. Basically, there's some pins at the back here that feel like they need a bit of extra help. So what I'll do is pull the chip out, but also put the desoldering gun on to melt up the solder that's underneath, and hopefully the leg will come loose. But I'll do that off shot just in case I make a big mess of it. Okay, so the chip actually came away quite easily after I held the desoldering gun on this side and pulled on the chip. One thing I want to do now is clean this area and clean the other side, because obviously I need to put some fresh stuff down, fresh flux and everything. Let's get some isopro in my little container here and dunk a Q-tip in and clean this area. I really hope this is the last chip, at least in the lower banks anyway. See, look at all that muck that came off. That's not nice and white. There's white and there's grey. So whoever soldered all this up at the factory was a bit messy. Probably a machine, but it might not have been actually. Let's flip the board over and then clean this side as well. Let that dry off a moment. Put some more. Actually, let's put the chip socket in first so we get another one. As you can see, I've got a long collection of them. I've got far too many, but that's how many they come in. Right, so what I've been doing is making sure that the notch in the socket is in the right place, which is at the bottom of these, all the way in, There's only just enough room for them to sit side by side within here by the looks of it. Put a bit of tape on just to hold it in place. Flip it over yet again. And let's get on with doing some soldering. Okay, so I've soldered all them up. I'll clean it up afterwards when I know it's all working. Right, so let's get the signal in. Let's get the regulator in. Let's move the pliers out of the way as well. We're at it. There's the regulator. There's the power. Be careful not to touch things that you don't want to be touching. There's no actual power going in just yet because there's the power button, so don't add power if you've not already done that. Need to get a memory chip in. So picking out a new one and bending it into shape. I know I'm doing it off camera, but you can see just nearly at the very bottom I'm bending it against the bit of a desk that I've got to bend it into shape. Alright, let's try fitting that. No, still not squashed enough. I'll be very careful with it and not break legs off. I believe that's right. There we go. Oh, moment of truth time now then. Let's go to the small screen, press the power button. Oh, nice steady picture. Oh, this is good. There we go. So nice, decent picture. Now we need to do a test for number 2. Don't worry about the M1 bad because that's a connection thing at the back if you've got the proper test. So what I need to do now is turn it off, plug the keyboard in and then do the test again. Okay, so I've got the keyboard. I'm going to have to be really careful because the desoldering iron's still hot. Plug that in there. Be very, very careful with all this. There we go, holding that in place. Let's make the screen go small again. Turn on the power. Let it do its thing and probably press other keys, but I just want to get back to where it was. Press number 2. Now it's testing all the different RAM banks because it'll do the other part as well just in case. Hopefully the one that I replaced that maybe didn't need replacing is fine. Oh, it's got to count to 7. Oh, I'm not being funny, but waiting for this has been like eek. And if I can get it working, I'm going to be really, really happy. And then if it is working, I'm going to be overjoyed. It's got, oh, it seems to have missed out 5. Oh dear. Oh, seems to have passed it. Right, so it's obviously going to take a little while to do this bit, so I'll come back and show you the results. And there we go, testing completed. It's passed all the memory. So yeah, it seems I've replaced the memory chip when it maybe didn't need it. What can I do now then it's a matter of resetting. There we go. Test card. Press space. Does that work? Did I press it in time? Maybe not. Let's press reset again. then I'll hold down space and press reset. There we go. That's working fine. Oh, I need to get some sound going to test it, but basically I'm going to go through all the different tests now and see if it works. But I'll do that in my own little time. Okay, so I've tested it directly through the system and everything like that instead of trying to do it to the capture bit first. I'm getting a wonderful signal through my OSSC, getting a nice picture, getting sound. It seems to have done a soak test. Well, this is a bit of a quick interjection. Basically, this is after I've already filmed part 3, which sadly I've lost some parts to now. It turned out that after I've put it all back in the case and I thought everything was ready, this chip decided to fail. After playing some games and pressing reset buttons, that chip decided to fail. So I desoldered it, and when I desoldered it, it pulled up a trace, which meant I had to figure out where that trace was going, and it moves and wiggles around all over the board. At first I figured out that it actually went from that pin down to here. I thought that might work, and then a bit more messing around with my amp meter and looking for continuity. It turned out from that pin to the same pin on its buddy sat next to it is where the trace was leading to also. So it sort of divides and goes that way, and it turns out that that trace actually bounces along all the chips on those pins. So it must be what the computer uses to figure out which bank it's using. Anyway, it now works again, which was annoying because I really thought I nailed it first time around. I have actually ran a soak test this time for half an hour, pressing reset from time to time, and I'm trying to warm the thing up. It seems to be working fine, but I've also checked the power supply unit, and it turns out it's pumping out nearly 15 volts or just over or something, I can't remember now, but it's basically 15 volts, and it should be pushing out 9. I know there's all the gubbins on the motherboard that lowers it, but I think it's still pushing a bit too much around the board. So I've bought a third-party power supply unit, which should be hopefully arriving sometime next week, and ready for me messing around and actually using it for real. So double check how much voltage your power supply unit is pushing out. I've read on the internet that 12 volts is quite common and should be okay, but sadly mine's pushing out 15, and I don't have a screwdriver or anything to open it up, and I've never actually seen anyone get in and open one up anyway. With a quick look around, it was just quicker and cheaper to buy a new power supply unit. So until next time, I do hope that you press the subscribe button, press the like button, have a look in the description for all the info I've put about what I've purchased. But while you're there, have a look at the Discord links and the Patreon links if you so wish. It'd be great to have some more people over on the Discord. Until then, as always, happy gaming.